We're having such lovely weather. Um, my name is Nikan Wasinondh. I'm from Wonderfruit, which is produced by Scratch First, a small studio in Bangkok. But mostly people know us as Wonderfruit. And just for those who don't know, probably most of you, there's a short video. Well, not that short. It's like 3 minutes. So you can still, keep on relaxing and just watch through this to get an understanding on what we do, what we look like, what we feel like. What you probably see is a very happy, joyful, celebrative moments, very much about people and gathering and place. What we're about is deepening our relationship with mind and nature, which in essence is yourself. We talk about exploring the intersection of with culture to explore mind and nature within and outside in the environment. Wonderfruit being produced by Scratch First. Culture is the catalyst for growth. We engage the curious minds through the intersections of art and culture to encourage, develop, and innovate meaningful relationships with ourselves and with nature and others. So my name is Bo, and I'm the content director of Wonderfruit, which is one of the platforms cultivating cultural practices to bring people together to celebrate the arts. And just would like to introduce what we do, and also especially meeting Ajat Anotai a few weeks ago and having shared the musical or sound parts of what Wonderfruit does. I'd like to also share here again, and perhaps in different facets, on what music and sound relates in our programming and how we work with it. So the root is very much about creating awareness on sustainability and mindfulness through various actions and innovations and collaborations with field practitioners and cultural institutions, and also brand partners, to create impact on a personal level where when we gather annually, we can then kind of learn new skills, share new stories, and go away and adapt it to enhance our own livelihood. So it's an annual gathering. We've been gathering since 2014, every year in December, in the fields outside of Bangkok, in Chonburi, which is about 2 hours drive from the city. And our latest edition was 2022, December. So just rewinding back a bit, being Scratch First, we're Thailand-based. Our studio's in Bangkok, and we're an independent multidisciplinary studio of people from various backgrounds creating cultural programming and phenomena through mindful experiences. So we've had several brands and platforms throughout the years where we engage on different pillars and contents. So we create stories and to encourage and develop innovative solutions for sustainable living through culture. Methodology, so kind of pragmatic, just so we can kind of like leverage and communicate and share with everyone. Having the backbone of sustainability, we really start from the land, where sustainable practices on the land, whether it's water usage, electricity usage, or how we create projects, are very much the base infrastructure of what we do. So this relates to the practicality of managing waste, perhaps. And then we go on to develop with various groups of people on several projects to bring several ideas on sustainability and engagements and community to life. And I'll run through that in a moment. And also, having done in several years, we're able to mitigate and innovate special projects, especially to collaborate even more communities and partners to create more diverse programming. And this includes everything from cryptocurrency, which is kind of like almost a taboo word, tree coin that we work with, a natural reserve / arts and music, to everything from single-use plastic ban on the premise of the festival grounds itself. Our pledge towards sustainability, being kind of one of the earlier partners of the SDGs in Thailand as well. We've worked towards being measurable, being carbon neutral, working on our natural resources from the land, kind of persuading and encouraging several behaviors, on disposability of materials that we use on site, whether it's in consumption or and lining up to how we build and create with, creating carbon calculator and platform on where everything is measurable, and we come up with a sustainability manual and reports yearly, and able to manage and handle all our waste, up to 95% in 2019, and it was up to like 98% in 2022. And we're very creative, but we're also very pragmatic in what we do. In terms of sites, logistically, we're just in the kind of like the lower part of Bangkok on the eastern seaboard, very accessible internationally as well, being a very good hub and a natural place. The place is like 400 rai, which is just shy of 200 acres of natural land, surrounded by mountains and ocean as well. So there's really a lot to explore and work with throughout the year, and it's also owned by the company, so that we're also able to work and explore and research in the resources that we have throughout the year. This is our land, and this is a map that you will kind of like maneuver through during live dates, just to talk about several layers of kind of advantage or strong points of what we're based on is that because it's the organizational land, we're able to really experiment and innovate different ways on how to work with the land, to farm, to make a living, especially with COVID, where everything is locked down. It's really a source of inspiration and rejuvenation and sustenance, where we started even building more onto the land because it becomes more and more a home, as opposed to an annual open house of celebrations. Secondly, being multidisciplinary and natural space, we're able to move quite fluidly throughout the year and work with several groups of people and organizations to create one-off happenings and work with partners on several events throughout the year and in different parts that have different characteristics. And yeah, the third is being independent and being able to share that with our allies and networks throughout the year to expedite various projects. So you can see through that it's back by the mountain, and it's actually really plush, and there are camping grounds all around with several villages around with different programming according to different themes and different hosts as well. It's kind of like a timeline establishment since 2014, being a gathering platform since the early years was very much leaning on the idea of being transformative and lifestyle-based. It was, with us coming together from very different backgrounds and also from outside Thailand, we're very much curious about nurturing and expediting and encouraging the alternative cultures of what Thailand or even urban Bangkok could offer, and to be able to go deeper and further from what is readily available that you can kind of access usually. And this includes all the pillars of music, arts, performances, food, way to live and think and share as well. And I think, with accessibility being one of the words up there, well, definitely sustainability is our very strong ethos. Accessibility in terms of communications and making understandings with communities around has been evolving throughout the years. And it's, I think if you're looking from the global plethora, the idea of festival is very diverse and very, there's so many facets of things that you can present and get people to join on different topics, right? In Thailand, it's very much known on more kind of mainstream contemporary music when you coin the word festival, and just us going through and really spending attention, giving attention on all the other pillars, just make it more wholesome as kind of like a place of life and gathering in general. And then, claiming for not being just a music festival, but everything informing another, and that cultural practices include so many different different expressions modes, pretty much. Diving more into 2018 and 2019, communicating more with regional communities is very much pushing through the arts to create projects and working with various art forms to kind of work with the land and the communities that were able to gather and come together in December for five days, actually. That's how long an event is. 99 hours, so we run 24 hours from Thursday to Monday, midday. And then defining a new space, lately just before COVID, talking about, taking care of yourself, having acceptance, being able to join new communities and share thoughts and way of life while being mindful and sustainable in how you do it. With the COVID pause, there are thresholds that we also went through, but then we came back in 2022, reflecting very much on the pause and the segregation and the separation, but to really make gathering more meaningful for yourself and also for the environment that you're in. The pillars that we have, which actually are all melted into each other, of course, include music, Family, meaning very children-friendly. We have a very large span of demographics of people who come and visit and spend time at Wonderfruit. Wellness is very much, about coming in and just letting go and nurturing yourself and heal and learn new skills to be able to take care of yourself and others around. Farm to Feast is very much talking about the land, how we harvest, different ways of farming and growing food, and how that's gathered and created into different food programs throughout the long weekend, which includes over 100 food vendors with special food programmings that includes master classes and also theatrical food performances. Art and architecture very much inform the landscape of Wonderfruit, where it actually connects the land with functional structures and venues on where programming comes alive and how experiences happen. And talks and workshops is also a very an important factor for us, where people come and they're also able to be part of the program during the long weekend, share their skills, go away, and also even come back and present more in the following years. Plethora of venues in the landscape, pretty much. There are venues that are programmed especially for sunrises and sunsets, some that are just you have to discover yourself deep in the jungle, ones that are especially for daytime gathering and talks and workshops and rituals, ones that celebrate kind of more provincial culture, something like Lambas that we work closely with Jim Thompson on exploring more the northeastern Isan music culture and the communities around that. So we run 99 hours with 171 venues, talking stats, 600 programs throughout the long weekend, with countless activities throughout, including over hundreds of workshops and family and wellness. The food vendor I talked about, art installations, as well as architectural venues and so forth. Just want to share more on how we curate and how we come up with projects, which then would link on how musical elements would connect back to those projects. We very much harvest and lean into the natural resources that we have, whether it's the land, water, the mountains around, and create creative programming with that. One of the first venue that we created, actually, this Ethos Pavilion, was shaped from amount of earth that we have already standing on site, and then we shape it into an amphitheater that we activate, to the sunlight, the bright, hot Thai sunlight with Chiang Mai hand-painted umbrellas, to an architect coming to site and being inspired by the grass and open fields, and being overcome by the wilderness, that he works with very simple materials like steel to shape it like grass to hover over the landscape, to creating a landscape that if you fly over, having an aerial shot, you see a creature emerging from the ground, and the architect herself would be creating earth bricks to perform workshops, as well as lining the perimeters of the creature landscape with the bricks that she makes in red, as well as going into the water with architecture, something like bathhouses. We're very inspired by Thai fisherman village and Japanese onsen. And notably, these works are by Abe Rogers Design Studio based in London, as well as Bunser Prem Tada, an architect/artist in Bangkok. In terms of programming, it's very much about the place and the space and the light. We have solar stage that we program, especially with the solar cycle. We come together to celebrate sunrises and sunsets on this beautiful architecture by Greg Fleischman, which is sustainably a modular formula structure that we've had since our earlier years, and every year we just morph it and change the parts to reconfigure into different shapes. So programming venues are very much the arts, as well as not just a space, but we think about how people would come and engage in a space where this is very much like an open playground. So programming, if it's a musical performance, we'd really have to work through how the logistic and the technicality works with that. To something like Theater Pavilion on the top right, which is right by the lake. It's very flushed. It has a beautiful view of the lake as well as the sunsets, and it's made from natural material, bamboo, so that people could gather at sunset to sit on the grass and listen to very beautiful experimental music. To a larger stage, like the Creature stage, which is more literally, like a concert space, which is the biggest live band venue that we have that presents all sorts of musical programs as well. And for example, this one was from the design by Abe, was from last year, where he visualized an eye where the screen is the pupil and you have the eyelashes being the arch there. So visually, we were also working and activating the space like a blinking eye. And then linking back to cultural histories and heritage stories as well. We did a rice stage working with nearby communities who were creating kind of like a social welfare co-op to grow their own heritage brand of rice, as well as hand picking it, hand harvesting it to create this stage with us. And it's designed by Podi Architect working with Tao Kai Chon. Both are based in Thailand. And from this kind of story, we're able to kind of showcase the idea of rice, the natural sustenance element of Thailand, that very much reflects the agricultural, the heritage, the economics, the cultural, the way of life of rural communities around Thailand, especially in the northeast, where it is actually a tradition where villagers would harvest seasonally their rice and bring them together to the temple to create a rice temple and have it blessed by the monks until they share and distribute it amongst themselves. So it's going back past very much contemporary capitalist times. And I think it's very important for us to understand the materiality, the story of the design itself, and able to carry it through to how we showcase it as well. To the notably Molam Bus, which is very much about Isan music, and Isan music genre, which actually has very much roots in all like Southeast Asia, and it's very social political as well. It's reflects the stories and the controversies of the Cold War, but through very celebrative, colorful musical celebrations with very unique musical instruments as well. And that becomes a very stronghold of cultural gathering for us in a particular area. And we've been working with Mafsai, who is a contemporary music artist, and he works electronically as well as with live bands and kind of bringing the roots of Molam and mixing it and presenting it in very contemporary ways. As well as Neramit that we have, which is a very new venue that we had from last year, becoming a more experimental stage. It opens 24 hours. It's like a town hall for us. And it's where you can pop in and able to sit down and watch a documentary or a shadow puppet music performance or a space NASA visual show that happens on stage. This one is very much what we're known for, actually. It's our night venues, very uncompromised, eclectic electronics, mixing very much the media of sound and light and structures together, where it's the quarry, which is right in the underbelly of the runoff, the erosion of the land itself, that is now probably flooding because of this rain like this. And we're only able to go in and intercept it for several weeks and bring it to life to create this quarry after our techno-based musical venue that it's hard to find as it is equally hard to get out from. To the polygon, which is very much like a space landing in itself, a structure now with trees and connected with animated lights, where you can really have sound bath during the day, and it really comes alive and take you on a journey throughout the nights. More on the visual arts stream. I'm actually from visual arts background, and sustainable design. And then, going into art management, where I'm able to curate and work closely with artists on very much about the land and the stories and the sustainable practices that the artists are running themselves already. Returning back to the land, having Wonderfruit as an annual gathering is quite a short window to when we're able to share the stories and the spaces with everyone. So a lot of the time, the processes include working and harvesting the resource on the land as well. With this project, with Pi Anon Nong Yao, who are been based in Chiang Mai and also Vietnam, he comes to the land during rainy season, actually around this time, and field records the natural sounds in different areas, and then works with them to represent them during the festival, so that there is that connection of space and land and time that people can connect to the place that they enter and experience. And it's not just about that December beautiful sunlight, but also the thunders and the creatures that live on the land when it was fully rewilded and unpopulated. So with something like this, it's we've done for 2 versions. The first version was when he had 16 tracks collected and then presented through horn speakers. And he returned after COVID to collect more sounds, which include bigger storms and even livelihoods of frogs and crickets and birds in different times of day, and layer that on again with a double set of mini speakers onto the horns. Extending Wonderfruit outside of the Wonderfruit land, we talk about the natural time and space of the natural land. We also extend out towards Bangkok, coming back home where we're based. We work with Musicity and Erase Tapes Studio to curate an experience throughout Bangkok, where you can go on ground and visit our introduced venues and hear the soundscapes of those venues. So I selected a route very near here, actually. It's in the old part of Bangkok town. 7 venues with historical significance and stories, and sharing that over with Erase Tapes and Musicities to match with artists who would then come and field record those structures and venues, having researched more in depth about the historical significance of those areas, and then working with the structures themselves, collecting community sounds and spatial sounds to create compositions that they then perform live at Wonderfruit. So if you go to the Musicity website, you would have come to an edition. So Musicity was based in London, now they're based in Japan, and they work very much about the intersection between space, architecture, and sound. So the artists that come and work in collaborations like this are very ethereal and very visceral, and very much about collecting the textures and grids of space and atmosphere, and then working that through their compositions to be presented again. So the artists that we were working with included Hatis Noid, who has a psychology background and actually Japanese based in Berlin, and she actually uses her voice to express her sounds, and she was very much enthralled with the chantings and the sound at Wat Po. Or Daniel Brandt, who was working with the Giant Swing, which is a venue in Old Bangkok area that has quite a royal community engagement history context, but what he was working with it was quite industrial, where he was working with the structure of the swing itself to create a composition. And this happened within 2 weeks, actually. Yeah, going on the Musicity side, what they encourage is that you would take this route and go through Bangkok, through the venues, and once you're there and immersed in the atmosphere and the volume of the space, then you're unlocked GPS-wise to listen to these sounds. But throughout COVID, we created an agreement where, with accessibility, you're able to just click in and just audibly travel to these places. This one also includes a friend, a very much ally sitting over there, Sirasa Bunma, Sonic Elements, and this is a fruit of COVID times. It was in 2020 when we were not able to gather or see or travel, and we really missed just physically gathering and just being together and sharing moments again. And things that you just really take for granted. And we decided with Mississity that we would do something online that we could then share and develop and evolve further once we're open and able to meet physically again. So we did an online program called Sonic Elements, where we went to something very elemental, natural elements, and work with actually four, including Mississity artists as well, 3 sound artists, Sirasa Bunma, Kate Carr, and Chris Watson, to do master classes and workshops online, which kind of shared their sound practices. So Sirasa Bunma very much worked with indigenous communities and using sound and music. Maybe you should be presenting this, but to create awareness and create empathy and connections and understanding to fringe communities and indigenous wisdoms. So sound has a very specific value, I think, to Hear and Found, which is the collective that you founded, that May founded. And Kate Carr very much is a diarist, a sound diarist. We work with her especially on her bicycle travels, where she would just collect sounds of her bicycle wheels, the bridges that she went under. And it's just that approach of how sound is a material that you can work with, can capture, and also create with. Something like so intangible, but can create such a wholesome story. Chris Watson, an environmental activist, very much talks about the capturing and discovering of sounds, of nature, of natural creatures, to be able to create images and connections with people for environmental awareness and conservation. So these 3 have beautiful, very special, unique ways of working with sound and music. And with that, we work with a group of applicants, which they went away and collected and their own sound, field recorded their own sound in the restraint of space wherever they are in the world, and shared that with us, where Musicity then composed another piece. So with that in hand, that being in the middle of 2022, we had a little bubble of safe time where the country unlocked again in Thailand, but there was still no international travel. So we did a version of Muban Wonder of Wonderfruit called Muban Wonder, which means Wonder Village. And so we used this program to create sound installations throughout the fields, and matching those with makers and designers and architects to create spaces where the sounds of these artists would be presented. So these are the work pieces that we have. On top is the sound by Kate Carr, but the installation is by Pin Sarutta Kiat Pakpum, who works with scrap metal from her family studio, and she creates a maze of sound installations where people could kind of weave through the sound and hear Kate's diary sounds throughout her very colorful installation. On the top right is Nanu Kiat Pakpum, who is a maker. He works with wood. He's a carpenter at heart in practice as well. And there was a tree that fell on site that I felt needed love. So invited him to create a kind of comfort space with this felled tree with ram earth. And with that, linked to Sirasa's sounds that you collected from communities around Thailand that were about practices and ceremonies and social engagements, based on the idea that we are from the earth, earth is life. So that is another stance of that relation of sonic element and sound and space. The darker image in the water is Chris Watson, where he shared a track that he collected from the Humboldt Current around the Galapagos Islands, that he were able to get the sound of singing whales. And so excitedly, I thought of like having something very, very bare minimal, and showing the element of water, and to connect the whale song sounds and the natural sounds of the current to the water body that we have on site, actually. So it became a floating platform. And we work on the installation with Eyedropper Phil, a media studio, on this floating platform where people can go on and lay on this net, being very close to the water and being engulfed by the sound of the wild underwater sounds. And with the collected sounds from the participants from the workshop, we did an air installation on the bottom left, where it's called Aero Pendulum, and we work with Archi Complex, which is a studio in Japan, and musicity, composition of these sounds are filled in this space where they are like different sound balls that move in the wind, so that the sounds that people were sharing were also shifting and being shared in this very movable space as well. And then we went even on to how do we kind of work on empathy and engineering with people and using sound and space. So we attempted, I have to say attempted, mass empathy engineering project, where we worked with the Waldorf project, a very experimental, radical, theatrical music practice studio, where it's a festival-wide project where in 2019, we shut down on the last day. The last night was Sunday. And so imagine, 3 sleepless nights. Everybody was just kind of like, okay, we've been through all this, we're loving each other. They've been kind of overwhelmed by all the programming and discoveries that they had throughout the long weekend. At a certain time in the evening, we shut down the whole festival. No lights, electricity, and then they were politely ushered to the large stage that we had on the ground, and then laid everybody down in a configuration that was pre-planned and also mapped with AI, so that they had to be placed down and succumb and silenced for a moment of time, and having Not Waving as the music conductor that kind of like took people through this journey, and then having an even smaller number of artists, of performers that are gowned with light. So those were the only spirits that you could see in the fields come and interacted with each and every one of the bodies. We had 4,000 festival attendants laid on the ground and touched and interacted with throughout an up to 2-hour performance, actually. So it was very interesting to see how people interact or respond to such a program, where we also had little kind of like hints and strokes throughout the festival in terms of like announcement and just kind of like tickling curiosity on what's about to happen on Sunday night, but nobody were ever prepared on what actually happened. And it was a very great learning program for us to understand how people respond to how we create experiences and engineer community on the level of empathy, where you have to let go and succumb to the ground and then be built up again spiritually and consciously. Intermission is a program that we do in terms of like an outreach and also supporting new musical practices in studios. It's a program that we started pretty much earlier on master classing new coming musicians and bands and collectives and single artists who are unsigned and applied in with your project. And then we go through master classing series with How We Be to produce a show at Wonderfruit. So you're able to perform and share stages with your idols and very amazing international and local music acts as well. And then it grew on to to 2019. TAT is actually the Tourism Authority of Thailand, where we work with them on a roving bus, where the bus would drive around and have pop-up performances that were live bands, also electronics, also visual displays that came from the intermission program as well. And this is another outreach, another sharing program where we did an open call on a super green, super clean, super lean theme pavilion, where we received like over 100 applicants on designs and pavilions based on sustainability. And we worked through with a jury of eight juries international to kind of shape up and filter down until we have a winning team that we build with, and then design the content within with. And this was with the Trojans Collective, who are based in Switzerland. They're very interested about the fabric practices, the textile culture in Southeast Asia, and so they came over and learned about dyeing and also about bamboo building, and created a sustainability pavilion where people could come and just kind of like spend some time reading up concepts and stories on Wonderfruits and their practices. And yeah, just a little bit on our community, where it spans demographics. Families come, my parents go every year, and it's a place for new friends, and also a place where you go, and we have an app where you can actually map out your schedule and what you want to do, because there's so much going on, you can't never kind of see everything, including myself. But then the beauty is that you would find new spaces and discover new programs that you fall in love with and stick by it. So it would be great that, if you guys could also join us this year in December. We're in 14th to 18th, just a weekend before Christmas. And yeah, and we're talking about, the adventurous minds, the curious minds, people who are from different backgrounds, different interests, but just want to be out and learn and interact, have very open mind, and just want to get involved in the communities that we bring together to offer different programs. And just a little glimpse on what we're working on as well, on the intersection of exploring between the mind and nature through cultural practices. Last year we grew an ancestral forest, which is a project with Sugi and Ban Suan On Son, a local agroforestry team, to rewild 4 acres of land just by the mountain in the back of our fields, using the Miyawaki method, which is one of the fastest and most effective way to rewild degenerated land. And we researched the National Park of Khao Kiel, which is the only, the most pure natural botanical gathering of species within the area. And we were able to source 55 species, 20,000 saplings, which are now growing into trees that we will continue to extract livelihood from. And we're already planning field recording projects, as well as putting in a small forest stage to present musical performances for people and plants as well. And yeah, to develop programs so that people could connect and be closer to nature, and whether it's botanical education, taking care of trees and nature, in return being service to the environment that you come from, and developing cultural activations, whether it's workshops or performances to explore the consciousness of nature. And yeah, that's pretty much kind of like the glimpse of how sounds and nature and mind kind of mix up in our world of Wonderfruit. Thank you.
Thank you, Khun Bo. So I think you know where I'll be on 14th to the 18th of December.
Has anyone been?
Have you? I think some of our students has been performing a few years back, but any questions or booking? Even? Any reflect? reflection? I think yes, please, Sandrine.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It makes me dream a little bit, to be honest. But I will have a pragmatic question. I'm sorry for that. But what is the economic model of this Wonderfruit festival, and how do you build all this?
We are, it's quite a journey actually. It was very much driven by the founder's dream and personal assets. But modeling it as a business, which is a very, sustainability is very much a key for that. We very much rely on ticket sales, as well as partnerships.
Private partnership.
Yeah, private. Oh, no, private and governmental.
And government, okay.
Yeah, so in that sense, that's why it also takes a year-round work on these concocting. So it goes hand in hand with curatorial, really. We have these assets, we have these dreams, we have this. Working on a festival is very much a utopia idea, isn't it? You're able to set your own rules and your own landscapes and your own livelihood and your code of behaviors. But with that, you need allies. Yeah. So we work very much with collectives and organizations on also creating content to join, as well as if we do match up with the brand, it's very much about understanding their ethos and their campaign and seeing that alignment on sustainability, whether it's mindfulness or environmental, and then creating that together to be presented, to be built and presented at Wonderfruits. And being in Thailand, and I guess Southeast Asia as well, we're a no-logo festival, which is very, very hard. I think that's the business side of the story, where it's very much, I'm giving you this much and you have to put this here. And we don't do that at all. So we have to just spend more time to understand what they want and create the experience that is a joint interest and benefit.
Thank you. Because from a French people and French point of view, it's a really hard time for festival nowadays. And maybe I could ask the previous talk the same question about the economic model of that kind of festival, because in France nowadays fundings are falling drastically and there are no more support of the government, for example. So I think one of the struggling in for French people is to build partnership with private company. It is not in the mentality. It's hard for us to think that we can build that kind of fruitful partnership with each other and so on. So thank you for maybe this example. It's maybe possible, so thank you.
It has also taken many years. So
Yeah.
it is it's very much about consistency, and fostering relationships, right? Yeah.
Right.
Oh, but we also work with the French embassy and all the international cultural organizations. Yeah, and understanding how they work and what they support also help a lot.
Any other remarks? Ashley, yes, please.
Just a very quick question. Where can the example of the sound installations within Bangkok around here, can we still download them and experience it at the moment? Or
I'm not sure about downloadability, but you can access them still. If you go to Musicity, and there's a Bangkok edition, and there's actually a map with listing of venues and artists that are listed there, and you can access.
that's what I'm going to do.
But you
Excellent.
are in Bangkok, so if it's not raining tomorrow, you can also walk it. It'll be a beautiful half-day journey.
Hi, 2 questions, and you asked me 2 questions. One referring to what I said earlier. Where did you come up with the name Wonderfruit, and what are you trying to get across with that? After I complained about the very boring Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival, I'm really jealous of your name. That's the first question.
It went through different editions, actually. we knew that we wanted to plant seeds, the seeds of ideas. And it's never about us creating something for people to come and consume or be an audience of, but comes from a very participatory place where it's about fostering communities. Everybody gives and everybody takes and shares. So it's just instilling those seeds of ideas and being fruitful. So at first there was a name that was coined Strange Fruit, but upon researching into it, because we're quite quirky and you know how we approach things, and it's about trying and failing until you succeed, that kind of mentality, and you know, and asking questions. If something is not done, why is it not done, and can we attempt at it? So there's like this strange tackling, but upon researching, it has quite a macabre definition in a particular incident, right? So wonder, and you know, and talking about in the earlier years being innocently, actually, with purity, that we are nature and nature is us, and it reflects on the sustainability, and we believe that the sense of awe comes from nature. And so how we work when we talk about phenomenons, cultural phenomenons, it also reflects on the impact and senses that nature gives us. So we're always striving for inspirations and wonder. That's Wonderfruit works. But being in Thailand, it can also be a fruit festival. And we've also been understood of that in the earlier years.
Yeah, it's a great name. Congratulations on the name. The second question is in relation to sustainability, because you're obviously a very internationally focused festival, internationally, a lot of the projects you talked about, working with artists all over the world. Looking at the festival and some of the images, I was looking at a lot of light in some of the projects, in the staging. And I suppose it's a question, and again, slightly leading on from when we touched on sustainability when I was speaking earlier, is how you reconcile those environmental concerns with artist travel, with the sort of power that's required for multimedia projects.
Very much, and we try to work through that every year. Obviously, one of the easy quick fix, which corporations seem to do, is carbon neutral methodologies, which, you know, we have a calculator and we work with kind of forest grower bodies that we're able to trade carbon with. But it also comes in programming and curating, where we also work with networks in the region where artists are also doing projects in the area and then is part of a circuit where they come. And this in turn also relates to programming, where we may be working with a musical artist who is also a forager, who is also a speaker. So we're able to really engage talents in different avenues. And I think travel is still important, right? It's about physical gathering and also learning about each other and having firsthand experience, but to make it as worthwhile, and that those meetings and those experiences are not just let go and ticked off as an itinerary, but that it ripples out and connect even more communities together in different places of the world.
Thank you.
Oh, but on a very pragmatic electricity note, being a festival, as you probably know, also, especially if you don't have a venue or you're in such a wide open ground, we do use a lot of electricity to fuel. And so, you know, faces by faces, we're also trying to connect on that energy as well. Otherwise, we're gonna have to have like a field 5 times our size of solar power.
Any other questions? I think we can continue first, and then we'll come back to do a kind of. I hope you are staying with us later so that we can have this discussion. So, first thing, thank you very, very much, Khun Bo, for this presentation. I have to say I'm very proud to be a Thai person to have this festival based in Thailand. So, thank you very, very much, and thank you also for your thoughts about the festival as a utopia. And in some way, I think we often think of higher education as a utopia. This is a place that we exchange best idea, hopes for the future. And it's very difficult to get there, but I think it's just to see how you actually made it happen every year for 5 days, utopian and different meanings for each and every one of us. I think thank you very, very much.
Thank
And
you
a lot
for
of
the
things that I,
invitation.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.